Epidemiology, and today I want us to look at a few definitions. The first definition we're going to look at is what we call the incubation period, and basically this is the period between the infection time and when the symptoms start manifesting. So we say the period between the infection of an individual by a pathogen and the time when the illness or disease it causes manifests in the body of the carrier. Then the second one, we are looking at what we call the incidence, and incidence is basically number of new cases. So how many new cases do we have within a specific period of time? That is what we call the incidence. And then prevalence simply refers to the combined, the existing and the new number of cases of a specific disease. So if we maybe want to be very specific and talk of point prevalence, this means the total number of cases at a point or at a particular point in time. Then the next one we are looking at endemic. So what is endemic? When somebody says that a disease is endemic, simply means that that disease is occurring within a specified population in expected numbers. There is a number that is expected to occur at a particular time. For example, if there is a rainy season, we expect that there will be pools or parts of stagnant water, grass will grow, and therefore it will provide breeding places for mosquitoes, and the result will be an increase in malaria cases. So the health facilities or health practitioners will have a specified number of cases that will be expected within that particular time, and that is what we call endemic cases. Then epidemic now refers to when these cases occur beyond the expected levels, beyond the endemic levels. So if malaria cases occur above the expected levels, then we call that an epidemic. Okay. We talk of pandemic. Pandemic now is when the epidemic, the cases occurring beyond the expected levels, are spread over several countries or continents or a large geographical place, and usually affecting a large proportion of a population. So we call that a pandemic. An example, like recently we had COVID-19 hitting different continents, many countries, and therefore it was referred to as pandemic because it was an epidemic occurring in several countries, several continents, and a large geographical area, and it was affecting many people. Then sporadic cases are those that occur infrequently. You cannot predict them. They are irregular. So we call them sporadic. It's better for health facilities to take care and be ready for such sporadic cases, because normally if a health facility is not yet prepared to handle any sporadic case, it may rise and it may get to a level where it becomes a pandemic or epidemic, and then it graduates to pandemic. Then quarantine. When COVID hit, there was this term that was so common, quarantine. And what is it? It simply means the limitation of freedom of movement, apparently of healthy persons or animals. And these healthy people have been exposed to a case of an infectious disease. So we are not yet sure if they have the disease, but we want to put them somewhere so that they are observed if there will be the manifestation of that disease. When that limitation of movement occurs for purposes of observing them, we call that quarantine. Now, if there is a case that has already been identified. A case has already been identified and we know that that person is now sick, then we put them in separation, and when that happens we call that isolation. So isolation simply is the separation of sick people with infectious disease from people who are not sick. Okay, so if somebody is in quarantine and it happens that they manifest with the symptoms of the disease in question, then they are supposed to be removed from quarantine and be put in isolation. Get the difference? Then we go to this that we call mortality rate. Mortality rate simply refers to the number of deaths in a population during a specific period of time or time interval. Number of deaths, of course, caused by a specific disease. Okay, then case fatality rate. Case fatality rate refers to the proportion of cases that die from a particular disease or health issue. And these deaths are specific to a given disease. So, for example, if 100 people were diagnosed with COVID-19, for example, and 20 of them die, so the case fatality rate will be the proportion that die put as a ratio of the total number of the cases of that specific disease that were identified. So that will be 20 over 100, and it can be presented as a percentage, and therefore that will be 20%. So we say that the case fatality rate is 20% because 20 people died out of 100 people who were diagnosed with COVID-19. So basically those are a few of the definitions that are commonly used in epidemiology. More will come and more of that content will come. I would request that if you've not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do so. Watch the video,